Hello my friends, I'm Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to tell you all of the books I have acquired in the last, I think, 6 weeks since I did my last book haul. Let's count how many we have here. 5 romance, 2 arcs, 7 speculative new releases, 6 sequels or books I've already read and I just wanted to own, and 8 things I purchased secondhand or that are just older titles. That math works out to 28 things, I think. So let's start with romance. I grabbed these 2 things, which I could have gotten from my library. In fact, I did check this out from my library and then return it, but then I found them for really cheap. So I just decided to physically own them, even though I feel like I shouldn't do that with romance because it's not always a hit. I haven't had a 5-star romance yet this year, but maybe these will turn it around. I've been recommended The Honeymooners a lot. I recently read my first Christina Lauren, and this one sounds like it has everything that I like in it. It's leading up to, or no, there's a wedding within it, and it also has to do with kind of fake dating. So there's this guy and girl, and I think it's each of their siblings is getting married. And then for some reason, they have to go on the honeymoon together because I think everybody in the wedding party has gotten sick and they don't want to miss out on like someone using the trip because it's probably non-refundable. So these 2 like enemies, we've also got enemies to lovers or hate to love or dislike to like or whatever the dynamic you want to call is. And they go on this trip together, determined to have a good time independently, even though they have to be together, and then they're gonna have fun together. Then I have Partners in Crime by Alicia Ray, which is, it sounds like a really wild rom-com, which is the style that I need. Basically, these 2 were set up by a matchmaker and they didn't really get along. So we've got another hate to love dynamic, and they get back into contact with each other for some reason, and then suddenly they are on a road trip, evading crime bosses, escaping jewel thieves, and her past is going to come back to haunt her, whatever that means. I think it's going to be a wild time. Then the 3 2023 romance I picked up. This one arrived first. It's called Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I read Part of Your World last year, and I think this takes place in the same like hospital. So we have a woman who is working as a doctor, and then there's a new doctor. I think they don't like each other, but then they start to exchange letters back and forth and get to know a different side of each other. Her brother also needs a kidney transplant, and I think he is offering to do that. So that's the vibe there. Then, of course, I have Happy Place by Emily Henry. It's funny because for a lot of people, you know, a lot of people love Emily Henry and give her 5 stars for all of her adult romance. I preferred her like speculative YA stuff, and I haven't given her 5 stars yet. So everyone's like, this was like a 3-star romance and it was fine. So for me, going into it with low expectations, because I already give all of Emily Henry's romance 3 stars, maybe this one will just like be a huge win. I like that I say all of her books. I've only read 2 out of her 3 adult romance. But this one, maybe you've heard pitched a million times. I don't know if you watch like romance booktubers, or if me getting into romance and you having to hear about it is like weird for you. So in this one, we have these 2 people, and they recently broke up, but they haven't told their friendship group. And their friendship group gets together at this cottage every summer, and this is the last time because the cottage is being sold. So they decide to just keep the peace and pretend that they're still together. So it's kind of a second chance and fake dating situation because they're obviously going to realize that they are in love again by the end. I got the Indigo exclusive, and I'm pretty sure the only difference is there is an interview in the back, exclusive content, but like the interview is literally, the first question is like, tell us about Happy Place. And it's just her telling the synopsis of the book, which is very interesting. The Indigo exclusive was actually cheaper when I went to pre-order it months ago. So that's all fine. It's just like if I had paid more, which I wouldn't have done, for an exclusive, like that'd be a little bit disappointing, I feel. Anyway, moving on to my other pink cover. This is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I talked about this in my most anticipated romance of the year video, so I had to have it. It's another dislike to like dynamic, but this one isn't fake dating. It's my other trope that I love, which is like hiring or having someone teach you. I guess there is kind of fake dating involved because she is not really familiar with the dating scene, or she doesn't feel like she's good at it. She feels like she's really boring. So she's looking to this guy who's a bodyguard of her brother's fiance, who's like an actress. He's in town and she wants him for some reason to teach her how to be more like fun and interesting and like the main character of her own life. Meanwhile, he thinks she should be exactly who she is and is probably going to teach her that by the end, and it's going to be cute. Then the two arcs that I received, this is one of my favorite covers. It's so pretty and odd at the same time, and I think that reflects the type of stories in it. It's called Peach Pit, and it is an anthology of dangerous women, like fierce and dangerous women are at the heart of all of these stories. It's got some authors in here that I've read full-length novels from, like Megan Giddings, Shanna Porter, Alison Rumfitt. It says we see women at their most monstrous in these stories. Con artists, murderers, cutthroats, scalpers, ruled by ambition and grief and spite. I just think it's gonna be really fun. Then the other one is called The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw, which is an author who I didn't love her first book, but I'm really interested to try this one because I also barely know what it's about, and it doesn't give you much here because it is such a small novella. You don't really need to know much, but it says it's a twisted tale of a mermaid, a plague doctor, and the strange village they find deep in the woods, full of magic and something more sinister. I'm gonna try to read this soon so I can tell you what it's actually about. I guess it's about a forest of magic and 3 unlikely people, but like what's actually happening to them or around them, we'll find out. Then I have my stack of speculative, well, mostly speculative things. Let's start with the ones that aren't. These two are mystery thriller books that have been recently published. We have The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. I pick up Megan Miranda every single year. In this one, we have 7 friends. It originally started out as a group of 9 friends who survived like a bus crash that killed a bunch of their classmates or something like that. And then I think we're 7 years later? No, I'm not sure how far later, but it says 7 hours in the past. 7 days in the present, 7 survivors remaining, who would you save? So I think like dual timelines, we're gonna be flashing back to the events like of the bus crash. I'm not totally sure, but the reason we have 7 is it starts with 9 and then one of them takes their own life at the beginning of the book. And then once the second one does in the friendship group, they decide to get together for a little reunion, figure stuff out. And then while they're there, another one of them goes missing. So they have to solve all of these things, and obviously there's going to be secrets from the past as well. Then I have The Last Word by Taylor Adams, which it's so interesting because I could have sworn Taylor Adams was a woman. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever like said that or referenced her when talking about like No Exit. Where is No Exit? Right here. But I remember thinking when I was reading this, typically action-based thrillers, like I don't read a lot of them. They usually have a mystery plot line. This is one of like the sole action ones that I always recommend. And I feel like I have thought to myself, men typically do these types of stories and I don't see them a lot from women. So like it's cool that the one that I get to recommend is from a woman. No, why did I think that? When did I think that? Not sure. So this is his most recent book, and it makes sense that it's starring a male author who is stalking a bad reviewer. But I know people talked about Hairpin Bridge and how terrible it was. So I'm interested in this, but also hesitant. We're following Emma Carpenter. She lives in a really isolated place, as you can see. And yeah, she writes a negative review about this book and gets caught up in all of this internet discourse. The author starts to engage with her online and she starts to think maybe he's actually stalking her in real life. So we'll find out. Next up, I have The Insatiable Volt Sisters by Rachel Eve Moulton, who wrote one of my favorite books last year, Tinfoil Butterfly. This is so much thicker than I thought it would be. It's an interesting size. It takes place in the summer of 1989, and we have 2 sisters who are coming of age, they're growing up, something weird happens, and then we're also 10 years later when one of them gets a call from her sister being like, you have to come back to the island. She was never planning on returning, but she's always gonna do what her sister tells her, and it says it's an eerie, enthralling fable, and there are so many intriguing blurbs by authors here that call it nightmare fuel and reimagined fairy tale and a gothic fable. And I'm just really interested to know what on earth is even going to happen in here? Because again, don't totally know the plot, but we'll find out when we find out. I also got The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro, which I'm very intrigued by. This and the next book, I would love for you to let me know if you've read either of these, if you know how thrilling or horror they get, because to me they sound like gothic fairy tale, like literary horror, but if they do have like a mystery plot line or a thriller kind of element or really horrific things, let me know, because it's going to make some decisions for me as far as like readathon book club stuff. This is about a woman haunted by the Mexican folk demon whose name I cannot ever remember how to pronounce. It's about a woman who's a wife and a mother, but she's struggling with a darkness that threatens to consume her. I guess this magical power has taken all the women in her family, and she also wants to like find the family power that she has from all of these ancestors to fight against the dark magic. Then House of Cotton by Monica Brashears is such a beautiful cover. And this is the one where there's a woman named Magnolia, and this guy named Cotton comes to her and tells her he has like a job for her at a funeral home. She's gonna make a lot of money, and as she makes more money and is more incentivized, the things that she's asked to do gets more and more weird at this funeral home, perhaps more and more dangerous. It's said to have a lot of social commentary. It's going to reveal the aftermath of an American plantation and what it means to be poor, Black, and a woman in the God-fearing South. Next up, I've got another much anticipated book that I included in that video at the beginning of the year, Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. This has a bunch of different perspectives, and it's set up north in the near future. It's 2049. Summer temperatures are intolerably high. Hold on, I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Someone trying to sell me something. Shocking. Where was I? Okay, humans are implanted with a flick at birth, which allows them to remain perpetually online. There are people high in society living on floating cities off the coast. People on the mainland are struggling. And then we have this woman named Rose, and she is offered the opportunity to be an escort up north where like the weather is better, the air is better, and she goes up there but finds out it's not exactly what she expected. And the other perspectives are like people who live and work in this research facility. There's a young professor longing to escape his wealthy family, and I've heard that there's a lot of twists and turns and reveals to be found in here, so I think it's gonna be really fun. And then I have Venko by Sherry Dimeline, author of Empire of Wild and The Marrow Thieves. Empire of Wild I liked, Marrow Thieves I loved, and this is a witch story. So we have a main character named Lucky, and there's another main character named Mina, and Mina is the head of this like coven, and there are these like magical spoons, and if you find your magical spoon, she will find you, and she's collecting all of these witches and these magical spoons, and once she has all of them, she can like have this powerful coven. And so once Lucky finds her, she tasks Lucky with this series of like tasks to maybe find the last spoon. So Lucky and her grandmother go on a dangerous, sometimes hilarious road trip in search of the seventh spoon. It ends in the darkly magical city of New Orleans. There's going to be a final confrontation. It's like an underground magic system, and I think it sounds really interesting. My next stack I can run through pretty quickly because these are the ones that I've already read, or like they're sequels to things I've already read. So I just bought Pew by Catherine Lacey, which I just read like last week. It's the one where there's the unknown stranger who wakes up in a church pew and the church takes them in. They don't know anything about Pew. They never learn anything about Pew, and it's leading to this weird event. And it's just like this religious community and the way that Pew impacts them and how they impact Pew. I also found Lost in the Moment and Found. I got an art kindly from the publisher. This is the latest book in the Wayward Children series. And I now have the hardcover. I also found a children's Bible by Lydia Millett, which is one of my favorite reads. It's funny how I just said that, I consider this one of my favorite reads of last year, but I only gave it a 4.5, and I can't stop thinking about it, and I want to reread it. It's about this like big family friendship group where there are all of these parents and their children, and the parents are not really paying attention to the children properly, and then there's this like climate emergency and they get separated, and the children kind of create their own Society. It's something that I really want to reread and solidify as an all-time favorite because I feel like I just read it too quickly. Then sequels, I read Dead Dead Girls a couple months ago, and I just got this one, which is Harlem Sunset. So it's a Harlem Renaissance mystery series, and we have our main character Louise. Is it Louise? Yes. And she has a partner named Rosa Maria. And in this one, Rosa Maria is being accused of murdering, I think, Louise's friend from childhood, or somebody who got kidnapped with Louise. In the first book, we found out that she was kidnapped as a child, and we didn't learn much more about that, but I'm sure we're going to in here. And now she has to protect her partner from being implicated. Then I came upon Harrow the Ninth and Nona the Ninth, which I don't know when I'll actually read, but I just love that this one says, the necromancers are back and they're gayer than ever. So I read Gideon the Ninth recently, gave it 4 stars. I've heard that this is just absolutely ridiculous, like it makes no sense, so just go along for the ride and maybe you'll understand it by the end. I don't know that I've heard much about Nona, and I probably shouldn't read any more into it, so just know that I have it and I want to read it. And the last stack is older releases that I picked up for various reasons. So the first one is The Devotion of Suspect X by Kigo Higashino. Keiko, I think, for the Literally Dead Book Club next month. So this is a story of a woman who kills, I think, a man, and then there's a man who's protecting her, and there's a detective who's looking into it, and it's like a cat and mouse game, and we get to find out how the crime was committed by the end. And I've heard it's very fun, lots of reveals. Then there's 56 Days, which I just got because it was really cheap at the thrift store. This is by Catherine Ryan Howard, and it takes place in Ireland during COVID, and there is a man who I think murders a woman, and now there's a detective trying to figure out what happened, because the detective arrives at Oliver's apartment to discover a decomposing body inside. And it opens with Sierra and Oliver meet in a supermarket queue in Dublin and start dating the same week COVID-19 reaches Irish shores. So 56 days ago they met. I guess they decided to live together. They got isolated together, and then do we even know if it's for sure she who dies? I don't know, but it says, has lockdown created an opportunity for someone to commit the perfect crime? I've heard mixed things about it. Let me know if you think I'll like it. Also, I need your opinion on this. I'm just having a real moment with like lime green chartreuse covers right now, and I really wanted this, even though it's like the third or fourth book in a series. I need you to tell me if I have to read the first book, like if I have to read them in order. I'm sure it'll be more beneficial to read like John Dies at the End or whatever the first one's called, and there's one about like being a book of spiders, but I think it's just a group of like 3 or 4 characters, and they keep encountering weird things, and it feels like kind of a mystery series where like you don't have to read all of them. Each one stands on its own. But I saw this in like an Instagram reel or a TikTok that listed a bunch of books that were like shocking, or there was something that pulled me in that made me screenshot it, and then when I saw it at the thrift store, I just bought it. You let me know what I should do about that. Then I picked this up because of all of you. The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enrique. I read her recently translated, what is it called? I can't remember what the book is called. I read this, Our Share of Night. I really liked it, and you all have told me to read her short stories. So this is this one. And then there's one called Things We Lost in the Fire, which I'm also keeping my eye out for. It kind of sounds like Out There by Kate Folk, as far as just being a mix of like weird, macabre stories. We have unruly teenagers, crooked witches, homeless ghosts, and hungry women. They walk the uneasy line between urban realism and horror. All of these stories do. And I just think it sounds intriguing. Then I grabbed Something New Under the Sun by Alexandra Kleeman, who, if you remember, I did a video where I talked about all of the authors who have blurbed my favorite books. Alexandra Kleeman kept popping up, and you all recommended this one. And I didn't actually read the synopsis before I grabbed it because I'm going to integrate this into a video. Novelist Patrick Hamlin has come to Los Angeles to oversee the film adaptation of one of his books and try to impress his wife and daughter back home. He finds an unlikely partner in Cassidy Carter, the cynical starlet, in the film, and the two investigate the darker side of all that glitters in Hollywood. There's a company with a mysterious new brand of synthetic water that's causing like weird things to happen. I don't know. Will I like it? We'll find out. I also grabbed Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell because I recently did a video where I read booktuber recommendations where you hold up one book and you're like, if you liked this, read this. Noelle, I ended up reading the guide because of Station 11. That was her like pairing. And she also paired If We Were Villains or Station 11 with this because obviously it's a Shakespeare inspired story. So in here we have a boy who's 11 years old named Hamnet who dies, and I think it's like the lead up to that or what happens after. It's mostly about the woman who is married to William Shakespeare. Why can't I remember her name? I want to say Agnes. Agnes, a wild creature who walks her family's land with a falcon in her glove and is known throughout the countryside for her unusual gifts as a healer. Her husband's career on the London stage is just taking off when his beloved son succumbs to sudden fever. This is during the Black Death, the 1580s, and I will read it someday. Then I grabbed A Sliver of Darkness by C.J. Tudor, which is the author of many things I have read, and I was really interested in checking out her short stories, especially considering I've read one from her called Butterfly Island. I can't remember if I liked it or not. I think I did, and that one is the final story in this. So I don't know what all of them are. Time Slips, Doomsday Scenarios, Killer Butterflies. C.J. Tudor's novels are widely acclaimed, blah, 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 blah. It's riveting, macabre, and explosively original. The stories are wicked, and she's being referred to as Britain's female Stephen King. I will read this someday. Maybe for Summerween. That could be a good one for Summerween. And then finally, I have The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, who's another author that popped up in that building a spreadsheet video. It seems really in line with Circe and Kaikeyi, which I really enjoyed. It's a retelling of the legendary story of Angrboda and Loki and Odin. Angrboda, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, is punished for refusing to provide Odin with knowledge of the future. He sets her on fire, and she goes to flee in the remote forest where she comes into contact with Loki. Their union produces 3 unusual children, each with a secret destiny. I think this could be a big win, but we'll see someday. Anyway, that's everything that I bought, was sent, entered my life. And if you have read any of them, let me know. I asked you a lot of questions throughout this, so I'm sure you're already tapping away and letting me know your thoughts. If you are planning to read any of these, let me know too. What you think I will like, what you think I need to prioritize. I always appreciate your thoughts and feedback, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!